Welcome back, everyone, to Tarvel's Perspective. And this episode's going to be a bit of a quickie that we can squeeze in before you get back to work. I recently picked up the physical version of Metroid Prime Remastered, just to see how much of an improvement it was over the other versions. And, well, I beat the game back-to-back twice, 100% in the span of 2 days. I could not put it down. That fact alone should tell you all you need to know about how I feel about the game. But it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. Having said that, let's phase on into some details, huh? 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 So here we are, the fourth version of the original Metroid Prime, this time on the Nintendo Switch. The biggest thing I need to say and get out of the way immediately is this. This is the exact same game you've played before. The structure, the layout, the gameplay, every scan, enemy, and item is exactly where they've always been. Hell, it's even very clearly running on the same engine. This is appropriately called a remaster and not a remake. Think more Halo Anniversary and less Resident Evil 2. Because of that, my thoughts and opinions on the game itself as a whole really haven't changed with this remaster. It still shines bright when the big moments hit, and it still slogs hard during the slower moments of the game. This is Metroid Prime, the video game. Killer rack and warts and all. If you want to know my thoughts on Metroid Prime as a whole, go check out my previous video detailing everything I feel towards it. This video is specifically going to be comparing this remaster to the original and to the Wii Trilogy version. The burning question at the top of everyone's mind is, what's changed? What differences are there between this remaster and the older versions? Let's get the obvious one out of the way immediately and just say that this game is drop dead gorgeous. Oh my Lanta! They clearly spared no expense in making every single pixel of this game look absolutely incredible. Samus herself, the menus, the widescreen HD at a locked-in 60 frames per second, It all makes playing this version dreamlike. I can't overstate just how beautiful this game is. It really puts other games on the Switch to absolute shame. Raindrops landing on Samus's arm cannon, the popping colors and stunning waterfalls of the Talon overworld. And yeah, stepping back into Phendrana for the first time again still made my knees buckle.
You're as beautiful as the day I lost you.
The bosses as well got a huge glow up. God, I don't remember Flagra being this hideously terrifying before. Reminds me a lot of Anima from Final Fantasy X. Don't hurt me, mommy. Also, a quick reminder to scan everything during this fight. More on that later. Seriously, if Metroid Prime was the approachably attractive cutie next door, Prime Remastered is that unattainably mega hot Hemsworth that forces you to change your pants and take a cold shower. It's that sexy. Though, unfortunately, the graphics aren't just a pure upgrade. A handful of things seem to have gotten lost in the spitshine. Now remember, this is just my amateur opinion here. I'm no doctor, but I feel like something is off with either the transparency or the lighting or some combination of either. You used to be able to light up a room or a hallway with a charge shot, but that seems to be completely gone now. This was so cool and added a lot of immersion of being alone on this strange new planet by having your own built-in torch. I'm sad to see this go, honestly. This goes for the Morph Ball too. It's sadly lost its shine. There's also this really harsh outline on the Phazon suit, which I am just not a fan of at all. Not only that, but stuff like Samus's reflection in the mirror is gone, killing these light bugs has almost zero effect on the lighting in the room itself, and a lot of the more spectacular death animations seem to be toned way down. Check out what happens when you kill these Bombus now. They just kind of blip out of existence, whereas in the original it was a spectacle. Some other enemies have really weird interactions and death animations too. I remember using the ice spreader on these white space pirates and watching the snow and ice coat them and tether them to the floor with their buddies. Now they just kinda, okay, bye. Popped out of existence, did ya? The coldest of deaths, I guess.
This son of a bitch is ice cold.
But for me, the worst visual change was the thermal visor. Sweet baby Metroid, this thing is just painful now. I know, I was never the biggest fan before, but now I feel like this is a migraine simulator. What the hell happened here? everything is disgustingly blurry and grainy, and only when enemies are up close are they even illuminated. This was so bad for me that for most of the dark areas where you're supposed to rely on it, I just stuck with the combat visor and felt around the room like a sleepwalker trying to make their way to the fridge at 4 a.m. It was that bad. The scan icons that appear over things are a bit smaller now, though I do sometimes get confused on whether or not I've scanned them already or not. I feel like the brightness difference between scanned and not scanned could use a little bit more differentiation, especially when a lot of these things are against an illuminated orange panel or some shit. I really appreciate how the important red scannable items have these large brackets around them to make them bigger. That's a great quality of life improvement that I noticed right away. Most of these are nitpicks, and the overall visual presentation is a huge net positive, and it's easily one of the most beautiful games on the Switch. That and the loading doors from the GameCube version are gone. Every door opens up as soon as you pop its bloomin'. Makes for a much smoother experience overall. The next biggest change this remaster makes is undoubtedly the controls. The amount of options for controls here is insane, in a good way. You've basically got most of the modern quality of life improvements that first-person shooter games come packed with. I played with a standard Pro Switch controller for both of my runs, and it controlled like a dream. Being able to use dual analog to walk and look felt amazing. Not sure if I like it more than the Trilogy version's Wiimote and Nunchuck, but I will admit overall it was much less janky and didn't require me to be quite as perfect as the Wii version did. Mostly because the auto aim in this game is kind of ridiculous. If you're just free aiming without locking onto an enemy, feel free to just spray shots in their general direction, because the game basically assumes you are locked on even if you're not. Look at this for example. I wasn't even close, but that power beam shot sure found its way home. It's kind of a bummer that I feel like I've got true control over my accuracy for once, but the game's all like, we got this, sweetie. They also included the Wii version's gyro aim, the GameCube's classic FPS scheme, and a hybrid of classic and gyro. I loved using this personally, but for the sake of recording this footage, I opted not to use it because the jitteriness of my hands kind of made the video a bit too shaky, and I didn't want to make you guys feel all barfy like when I was using the thermal visor. The amount of subtle options you can adjust in the control menu is nuts though. Really well done. Not quite as granular as I'd want it to be personally though, and I'll tell you why. The default controls for dual stick have you using the D-pad to switch your visors on the fly. And for a while, man, this felt perfect. It was only after getting the wave beam, and especially after getting the ice and plasma beam, that this started to become a bit of an issue. To change your beams in this scheme, you need to hold down the X button and then hit the D-pad. Sounds easy, right? Sure. But what happens is, both of those inputs require you to completely take your thumbs off both control sticks. So what ends up happening is in the middle of a fight with a rainbow pirate army, you need to come to a complete and total stop, and stop aiming to pick the beam you want. And in a firefight, this can be brutal, especially against the fission Metroids. Sadly to me, it seems like the GameCube version still has the easiest and most fluid method of swapping beams. That said, you can change this option in the controls to make it so that the visors are the ones that require you to hold X rather than the beams. And on my second run through hard mode, after I'd already scanned everything, and by everything I mean 99% of things, because apparently Flagrous Tentacle also counts as its own species. Okay, game. I gladly made the swap to this control scheme. Makes hectic fights so much easier to manage. But on my first run through normal, I was a real slop tart and messed up my beams and visors constantly. It can be a bit frustrating, but yeah, I know, skill issue and all that. The charge beam though. Now this is a pain in the dick. To start a charge in any beam now, you're forced to shoot out a series of normal shots first before the charge animation even begins. At first I thought, that's weird. They did this in Metroid Prime Hunters too, but not a big deal. But then it started to get annoying. A great example of why is the second you get the charge beam, you're walled off against these ion enemies, and to kill them you use a charge shot. It used to be pretty easy. Boom, 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 boom. Fire off a charge shot and start the next one together in my room. But now you gotta wait to start the charge animation and stare down those soulless irises and say,
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Before killing them. It seems nitpicky, yes, but it gets worse in the fight against Meta Ridley. Remember, super missiles are also tied to the charge beam in that you can't fire one off until your beam is fully charged. And when you get Ridley into this vulnerable state, the best thing to fire off is a super missile. But if you had just used either a charge shot or a super missile to get him into this state, you sometimes barely have enough time to sputter off your pre-cum shots before being able to blast his chest with another super missile. And this Ridley fight is already long enough, especially in hard mode, so missing one of these is agonizing. Though I will mention, during this 20-minute fight with Metal Neck here, I noticed that if you aim your arm cannon up in the rain, it trickles down towards you, and if you tilt it down towards the ground, it rolls down off of it. The little details here are astounding. Anyway, I'm not sure why they changed this to function like the Hunter's Charge Beam, but I kinda hope they at least add an option to turn this off in the future. Even if this doesn't really matter gameplay wise, it just feels annoying. It's like having to clear your throat before every sentence. See, wasn't that annoying? But hey, Spring Ball gets its own dedicated button, so that's nice. It's X though. Why? Why is it X? Why could it not be B? You know, the jump button? Some decisions, man, I can't. B is used to charge the boost ball, sure, but so is L. So B could very easily be jump without losing the ability to boost. Man, I am such a bitch. There's a bunch of stuff to unlock in the extras menu too, which is a nice bonus. But in order to get said stuff, we had to offer the fusion suit to the gods of lost content. That one's a big loss. But maybe in the future, when Nintendo adds Fusion to the GBA app, they may have some kind of connectivity? That's a huge pipe dream, but it's not impossible, right? The last thing I'll talk about is the music. The Metroid Prime Remastered soundtrack is the same. What? What a letdown, man. Let me tell you. I absolutely love the Metroid Prime soundtrack, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean I just want it copy and pasted here. I was so excited for new renditions and arrangements of the songs and was scouring through the options thinking, there's no way, right? I must have missed it. But nope. It's just the same. So many other remasters out there have redone their OSTs with the option to switch it back to the classic if you don't like the new tracks. So my expectations were set at that bar at least. As a gargantuan fan of video game music, this was such a massive bummer. Though there is one audio-based perk I thought was neat. You can add narration to the game in the menus, which was originally in the Japanese version, but now translated to English.
The Chozo's faith in Samus has been well rewarded, and now a new star shines in the universe. The bounty hunter, Samus Aran. What future and fate await her?
It was kind of jarring here having an actual narrator that wasn't Samus, but considering it's optional and is more content overall, I dig it. Oh hey Lily Reinhardt. Like I mentioned at the top of the episode though, I careened through this game not once, but twice the second I got my claws on it. My initial run was akin to eating my vegetables first and scanning everything in sight and dealing with the awkward beam switching controls. Then my hard mode run was the hot fudge sundae dessert of speed running through the game with no scanning and better beam control. I couldn't believe just how much this game made me feel like a kid again. It was such a familiar experience that simultaneously felt like a brand new adventure, and nothing can take that away. So is this definitive or flawed? Well, it's both. If someone was going to play Metroid Prime for the first time, I would unambiguously tell them that this is the best version. Even though there are some things that the other versions do a little bit better. The remaster is a fantastic modern version of Metroid Prime, but it doesn't really do anything to improve the game itself as a whole, and adds in some minor but annoying changes along with the quality of life improvements. But as I'm standing here right now, I just kind of want to go play it again. So I am going to put this above where I put the original, in the middle of the A tier. Huge thanks as always go out to my supporters on Patreon, including all of those shown on screen, along with James Cummings, Connor Binder, Redman, Elise Rococo, Pirikong, and the Wise Vivi. You're all Hemsworths to me. If you want to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/TarvaldsQuest and check out the various tiers and rewards, which could include a custom-made sprite head made by me in the credits of every episode. Every now and again, I stream over at twitch.tv/TarvaldsQuest, so head on over there and drop a follow to know when I go live. And if you ever miss a stream, I have a second channel on YouTube called TarvaldsQuest VODs, where you can catch up on any stream that you missed. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next quest.